Hello everyone, in this video you'll learn how to create an easily adjustable weapon script to create and control any gun type you want. We will make one script that utilizes several different variables that you can change to completely modify the behavior of your weapon to your choosing. Along with this, I will show you how to activate a particle system for a muzzle flash and create bullet holes wherever your bullets land. I know this is a lengthy video, but I have divided it into sections, so if you do not need bullet spread or burst for instance in your game, you can skip that part of the video. If this video helped you, please like and subscribe as it helps me create more content. Now let's get started. Okay, before we get started, it's important to know that this tutorial is designed to work with a project already running on the new input system. If you don't know how to do this, I recommend you watch my last video on how to create an FPS controller so you can follow along easier. Once you have your project all loaded up, here are some things you'll need to set up. Under your player camera, create an empty game object called weapon holder and zero it on your object, or on your player object. You may need to adjust some rotation. This is just completely by preference. All it changes is where the tip of your gun is going to be in the game. Underneath of this, drag your rifle object or your gun object, whatever it is you want here. It's completely up to you. This object right here I'm using, it came from this package. This package is amazing. It's awesome for prototyping, not to mention that it's free. After this, create another empty game object, and we're going to call it bullet origin. And make sure this is all under your weapon holder and drag it just right in front of the muzzle of your gun. Don't quite overlap it. This is going to act as a transform. We're going to use this as a starting spot of where it is that our gun is going to be shooting from. And lastly, create a muzzle flash or a particle system and name it muzzle flash and put it in just about the same spot as the bullet origin. And this is a very basic muzzle flash, but if you would like to copy my settings, here they are right here. Alright, now we're going to head into our input actions and set up our buttons to shoot and reload our weapon. In our input actions and underneath of our actions, create a new binding. This is going to be shoot. It's going to be a button, and for keyboard and mouse, it's going to be left mouse button. And for gamepad, it's going to be right trigger. Next, add another action. This is going to be for reload. For keyboard and mouse, it's going to be R on the keyboard. And one more binding for gamepad, and typically it's going to be bunt west on the gamepad. Make sure to save your asset, otherwise it will not be able to see any of this. And we're going to create a script, and this one script is going to control every weapon we have in the game. This script, we're going to change all of the values for a specific gun. So maybe we'll make a burst rifle, attach it to the rifle that we want to be burst, and then we're going to create a prefab, and now every single time you bring that prefab into the world, it's going to have those settings. Same for if you make a shotgun, full auto rifle, pistol, it'll all be saved if you create a prefab. We're going to name this script weapon. And now open it up. Okay, once you're in your script, the first thing you want to do is we want to create a reference to our input actions. You do this by creating a variable, and the variable type is going to be the name of whatever you named your input actions object. Mine is going to be input master. And if yours doesn't show up and it can't read your input actions, go back into your editor, and after all their scripts compile, and find your input master or input actions, whatever you named it, and make sure you have this ticked right here, generate C# class. This will create a new script and it'll have all the values for this, and then we can access this script in our script. So back in here, we're going to name this controls, and in a recent update, we can't just go into our editor and drag our input actions object into here like you can with other variables. So we have to create it on our awake. So create an awake, and underneath here, our controls is going to equal new input master, or whatever you named your input actions. Okay, so in the old input system, the way we'd set it up our script is we'd say if button down, perform this action. Well, with the new input system, there is no button down. We only have 3 action types. We have performed, started, and ended. So we're going to have to use those action types to create our own button down functionality. And to do this, we're going to have a lot more extra functions than normal. And they're only going to hold like a little bit of information, maybe 1 or 2 lines. But they're very necessary to get it to work, especially if you want any auto fire functionality or even a burst fire. Okay, so here are the functions we have to set up. So get rid of our update and start functions. We'll go back to those later. The first ones we're going to set up a private void start shot, private void end shot, private void perform the shot, we're going to reset the shot, so private void reset shot, private void reload, private void reload finish, and private void on enable, and private void on disable. And here in these functions, we're going to put something in right now. We want to make sure that we always have an input input actions in our script or in our project. So to do this, we want to make sure on enabled that the controls are enabled, and on disable that controls are disabled. And now we have all the functions we're going to need for the rest of the script. And like I said, these aren't all going to be full. Only a couple of them are going to have a little bit of information in them. It's necessary, but we need to have it so that way we have that functionality if you want an auto fire. Alright, now we're going to set up some variables. Up here, the first one we're going to make is a reference to our camera. Name it cam. And a raycast hit called ray hit, so we know where we're shooting from. And a serialized field, private float bullet range. And the reason we're making it serialized field instead of public is it's good practice to keep variables that we're only going to use in this script private, so that way if we ever have to reference a script again with another script, we're not going to have to sort through all of these other variables that have no meaning to us, and only keep the ones that we want to access public. So right below this, we're going to make a boolean and name it is shooting. Now we want to set up where our camera is automatically created and create a reference to it. So in our wake, go cam equals camera.main. And then to set up our actual input, we're going to go controls dot player dot shoot, because that's what we named the input action, dot started plus equals ctx, and subscribe it to start shot. And we're going to copy this, paste it down below, and instead of dot started, we're going to make it dot canceled. And instead of starting the shot, we're going to end the shot. So we're going to have this. This is now the new, make sure you spell it right with your function, end shot. Alright, so now that we have this all created, this is going to be the same exact simulation as hold button down with the old input system. So when we click, it's going to start the shot, and then when we release a click, it'll end the shot. So if we can hold it down, or we could just do a singular click. Okay, so back in our editor, we want to go on our weapon holder, and take our newly created script, and drag it on. And for bullet range, I'm just going to set it to a value of 100. And now we can click play. Okay, so when we click, nothing's happening. But as soon as we look at the ground, boom, there we go. Now we see that it's colliding with the ground every time we click. But now we see some issues. For one, we don't have a limit of ammo. We have unlimited ammo, and we can just keep firing. And if we're going to limit that, we also need a reload function, so we need to set up our reload. With that, we also see that it is shooting way too many times. We can see we're already over 999 times clicked, and I'm only clicking the mouse a couple times. I'm not holding it down. So we need to limit our fire rate and be able to adjust that. So we're going to go back in the script and we're going to change that. Okay, so once you're back in your script, we want to create a couple extra variables. These variables would be a new serialized field, private float for our fire rate and our reload time, another serialized field for private bool to see if it is an automatic weapon, and then that serialized field private in for magazine size, and then a private integer for ammo left. We're going to add a couple extra booleans here. One's going to be ready to shoot and reloading. Under our wake function, we want to set our ammo left equal to our magazine size, and we want to make sure that ready to shoot equals true. Now we also want to access our button for reload, so controls dot player dot reload dot performed plus equals context, and we're going to subscribe it to our reload function. And instead of just using is shooting, we're also checking to see if we are ready to shoot, if we are not reloading, and if ammo left is greater than 0, because if we have no ammo, we can't shoot. Under perform shot, we want to make sure that ready to shoot is no longer active. So ready to shoot equals false. And then after all of this is done, we also want to subtract our ammo. So ammo left minus minus. So this will subtract 1 every single time it's shot. Now we say if ammo left is greater than or equal to 0, then invoke reset shot in fire rate. So what this does is it'll invoke or call this method right here, because we say reset shot, so make sure that this matches this perfectly, and it's going to invoke this in this time. So whatever we set this, after this time is up, it's going to call this method. Underneath all of this, we're going to say if it's not automatic, we're just going to end the shot right here manually. So end shot. Under our reset shot, ready to shoot is equal to true. And for reload, we want to make sure reloading is equal to true, so we can't shoot while reloading. And we're going to invoke reload finished. Make sure it's the same name so that way it can find it in our reload time. So after our reload time is done, it's going to invoke this method, and in this method we're going to make sure our ammo left is equal to magazine size and reloading equals false. And the very last thing we want to do in reset shot, ready to shoot equals true. And there we go. Now we should have everything completely ready to go. We have a reloading function. We're capping how many times we can shoot. We're capping how much ammo we have. And we have a fire rate and a reload time. Now it's time to go back to the editor and test it out. In our editor, we see we have a couple more variables to change. For fire rate, I'm just going to make it 0.1. Reload time, I'm going to make it 1 second. I want it to be automatic. And for magazine size, I'm just going to set it 5 for now. And now let's click play. Okay, once we're in play, we can see if I click and hold down, boom, it shoots 5 shots and then it stops. I'm still holding down. I can click again, nothing happens. But if I click R to reload and then try to shoot again, and there we go, we get another 5 bullets. If we go over here and turn off is automatic, do another reload. If I click and hold, nothing, only shoots 1. But if I click rapid, it shoots a couple more times. Okay, so now that we have a basic weapons grid for a basic rifle or pistol or something like that, we want to create a bullet hole graphic so we can see where it is that our bullets are hitting, and then start activating our particle effect that we made earlier in this video. To start with the graphic, come down here. I just imported a regular picture of a bullet hole. Make sure it has a transparent background. In our texture type, set it to Sprite 2D and UI, and apply it. And in our hierarchy, create another empty. We're going to name it our bullet hole. This is going to be our prefab. Reset its transform. And underneath of it, create a new 3D object, plane. And for this plane, take our new bullet hole and just drag it on. And right here where it says shader, instead of standard, select sprites and default. Now, if you take a look at our bullet hole and drag it up, there we go, we see our bullet hole. On our plane, rotate it on the X by 90 degrees. And the reason this is when we spawn it, if it's not rotated 90 degrees, the way we're doing it, it won't stay flat to the surface that you're shooting, and it'll look really weird. So make sure you rotate it 90 degrees. And for our bullet hole, a good size that I like to use is 0.05. And yep, that looks like about a good size. And reset and bring it back to 000. And then take our bullet hole and drag it down here to create a prefab of it. And there we go. Now we can go back to the script and start spawning these every time we shoot. Once again, in order to get this to work, we need to add a couple more variables. So tab down a little bit. We're going to create a new serialized field. We're going to call it private game object bullet hole prefab. And this is where we're going to store that prefab that we just created. A new serialized field, private float. And we don't want the holes to stay there forever because it'll just spawn a whole bunch of objects and it'll start taking up resources and it'll slow your game down a ton if you shoot a lot. Another serialized field. And we're going to do this for our particle system, which will be our muzzle flash. And we're going to add another serialized field. This time it's going to be a string. We're going to name this enemy tag. So what this is going to be is we don't want to spawn a bullet hole when we hit a person that's an enemy. We just want to deal damage to that enemy and not spawn any holes on them because it'll look kind of weird. So we're going to use this tag system to make sure to check to see if it's an enemy or if it's just like environment. Alright, so we're going to come down here to our perform shoot. Under our physics raycast, we're going to see if ray hit dot collider dot game object dot tag is equal to our enemy tag. If it is, we're going to just do the damage to the player. And if it's not, we're going to instantiate our bullet hole. So game object bullet hole equals instantiate bullet hole graphic or bullet hole prefab ray hit dot point plus ray hit dot normal times 0.001 f and quaternion dot identity as game object. And all this is doing is we're going to get the normal of where this point is, and we're just going to raise it up just a little bit so that way we don't get any clipping. And to make sure that it faces the same direction as the wall that the bullet hits, we're going to say bullet hole dot transform dot look at ray hit dot point plus ray hit dot normal. And we want to destroy it after a certain amount of time. So destroy bullet hole for bullet hole lifespan. And then to play our muzzle flash, just right below this physics raycast, we're going to say muzzle flash dot play. And there we go. Now we have everything set up, and we're going to go back to the editor and change all these variables. Okay, back in the editor, the first thing I did is I created just a regular cube and named it enemy. And we're going to add a new tag to this. So come up here and create add tag, add list. I'm going to name it enemy. And so now the tag is set. So we have to go back into the object to make sure that we actually set that tag to enemy. On our weapon holder, now we have all these new variables. For our bullet hole prefab in our project, bring in our prefab. Bullet hole lifespan, I'm going to do 3 seconds. Muzzle flash is going to be this right here. And enemy tag is enemy. And make sure it's spelled correct, otherwise this won't work. And of course we kind of want to have the player know where it is that he's aiming, so we're going to create a quick little reticle. So we're going to do create UI, canvas, and make sure if you're using a new input system, go to your event system and replace with new input system UI input module. Otherwise it won't work and it'll throw up a whole bunch of like errors and stuff like that, and you don't want those. Underneath the canvas, create new UI, image, reticle. And for the source image, just go for the default knob. I think a 40 width and a 40 height is a good size. Put it in the 0, and that should be a good reticle. And I'm just going to set it to red so it's easy to be seen. And that should be everything. Now we're going to click play and test it to see if it works. Okay, now that we've clicked play, we see where we're aiming. If we shoot at our enemy, boom, right there, you can see no bullet holes respawned, but if you look down in the console, it says that we were hitting an enemy. If we reload real quick and then look at the ground, and there we go, our bullet holes spawn and they're all facing up and we can see all of them and they all disappear after 3 seconds. And there we go, we have a working shooter and it spawns whatever bullet hole that we make, and we can make sure that it doesn't spawn it in certain places. Now, if you want a little bit more control, as it is right now, it works and you can use it in your game. Or if you want more control, we're going to add bullet spread and the possibility to select if you want to burst fire or not. Okay, and here are the last things to add burst and spread to your weapon. Okay, here are the last couple things you need to add spread to your weapon and a burst. A couple more variables. Serialized field, private, float. We're going to do horizontal spread, vertical spread, and a burst delay. Underneath of here, one more serialized field, private integer, and it's bullets per burst, and a private integer to keep track of how many bullets are being shot of the burst, so you know how many more to shoot. In our update, right before perform shot, make sure bullet shot is equal to bullets per burst. Oh my god, I can't find it. Bullets per burst. And under our perform shoot, we want to calculate a spread before adding it to our direction. So up here, we're going to do float x equals random.range, and it's going to be negative horizontal and regular horizontal, so it's going to do a value between those two. And we're going to do another one, float y is equal to random.range again, but instead we're going to do negative vertical spread and vertical spread. And right here where we calculate our direction, we're simply just going to add a new vector 3, and we're going to pass in our x, our y, and 0 for the z. And then right under ammo left, we're going to do bullet shot, also subtract 1. And under if ammo left is greater than or equal to 0. And down here, we're going to edit this a little bit. So instead, we're going to say if bullets shot is greater than 0 and ammo left is also greater than 0, then we're going to invoke. Oh my god, I can't type today. Resume burst. And it's going to be burst delay for how long until we invoke this. And instead of if ammo left, we're going to just move this up and change it to else. And down here, we need to make sure we make the function resume burst. So private void resume burst. And once again, make sure this is spelled the same as this. And under here, ready to shoot is equal to true. And perform shot is called. So it'll continue the shoot until the burst is completely over. And there we go. Now we have all of our script completely done and set up for spread and a burst. Okay, so now you can delete your bullet hole. We don't need this anymore since we already made a prefab. And now there we go. So in our weapon holder, you can change these values for whatever you want. Once you get them to, let's say you want an automatic rifle and you get them to your liking, just come over here and rename this to just say auto rifle. And then you can create a prefab of it and you can bring it in every single time and it'll save those settings. If you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching and I hope this helped. If you have any more questions or things you'd like to see on this channel, comment down below and I'll do my best to respond to as much as I can. Once again, if you liked the video, I'd much appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. Thank you much and I'll see you in the next video.